morning, Agnes. It's good to have you here. Thank you very much for coming through. And how is London today?
Good morning, Boston. It's just you and I.
Yes, yes. Of course, we appreciate having you from GBS Africa. Actually, it's been a whole lot of. It's been an interesting year for the year 2020, and I'm sure you have your eyes on. I know the virus and the vaccine is the biggest story for the for around the world. But I think one major issue that's been discussed across Africa this year has to do with the new AFCFTA. We missed the deadline for takeoff on July 1st. Now that's been shifted to tomorrow, Friday, the 1st of January 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Boston. What an year it has been, and what an year it has been for Frontier Africa reports and Frontier opening bells. We started with optimism, really dedicating the program to providing an analysis every day on what's happening in our market. I think that's one of the big stories to come out of 2020. A platform that provides an up-to-date analysis on Africa financial market. Really, for me, that's a big story, and I'm really delighted and humbled to be part of this great initiative, and I do hope that going to 2021, Africa. Africa markets, Africa financial analysis will make headlines. We've had really gloomy news of COVID, of challenges throughout the continent. But going forward, I think 2021, despite still the ongoing spread of the pandemic, we are hopeful that through this platform, perhaps, we can be the good news platform for the African continent. And you're right. So we begin the year with optimism. Of the new trade agreement, bringing 54 African countries with a GDP of $1.3 trillion, economies of scale because you're over 2 billion people, I guess. And of course, we're expecting that exports will grow to about 570 per annum by 2030. And the African continent will be integrated, creating jobs, perhaps industrializing some of our sectors, specializing. So having clusters that specialize in different goods and services, and just sort of prospering the continent through trade. As we know very well that no country has ever prospered without trade, and for the first time, I think, as a continent, and I think from what COVID pandemic has shown us, we have to build local resilience. We need to build strong local supply chains. As you notice, our economies, which are particularly those that are dependent on international market or international value chains, struggled. Just because we didn't have those strong networks in the continent. But yes, 2021, we're looking forward to usher in a year as a integrated continent through trade, and I guess this is the optimism that will carry the continent throughout this year, despite obviously the underlying challenges that the continent faces. But we're overlooking that and saying, look, we've focused for so long on what brings us down, what can push this continent forward, and I think trade is one of the prospects that this continent has.
I completely agree with you, Agnes, considering where we're coming from. But again, you touch on the Frontier Africa reports taking off in the turbulent year. Actually, we actually went straight into the eye of the storm in March with the pandemic first wave. And then it was a bold move. We thank you and all our partners who had been with us on the show throughout the year. It's been 10 months of Frontier Africa reports with our daily programming and all of that. So we thank our partners and our analysts, our guests who had, and you're one of them. You've been wonderful. With us from GBS Africa throughout the year, from Betiva Capital Management to Afrinverse to Greenwich Merchant Bank to a host of others to Rich Frontiers Management with Ali and Ali Seger in United Arab Emirates of Seger and Associates, and to George Bodo also in at Call Street Research and Analytics in Nairobi. We've really had a very great team of all of you helping and assisting us to push this conversation further, that we need to talk more about Africa, we need to expand the market. Simply put, we need to democratize financial and market news for Africans everywhere. And we're getting some positive response in terms of how they can do cross-border listing, cross-border trading for those who want to invest in treasury bills, in bonds, in different asset classes, not just only one exchange in their country, but who wants to do it in any other country. For example, if a Nigerian wants to buy the shares of Safaricom, they can do it. Ethiopia is in the privatization of the telecom. Nigerians can be part of that. The Kenyans can be part of that. The Ghanaians can be part of that. From Cameroon to Kinshasa, all the way down to Malawi, Tanzania. I think it's all the ecosystem that Africa is. But AFCFTA will really move forward on two platforms, or three, basically. The first is industrialization, which folks say, look, you need trade, but you need to produce the goods. So, and that takes me to the AFDB, with high fives in terms of industrialization across the various industries, agriculture, heavy manufacturing, durable goods, non-durable goods, and all of that on one hand. The second is that the financial system, the banks, the payment system. So I love what the Kenyan Central Bank is just rolled out as a vision and strategy for 2021, 2025, the new document which was released a few days ago about the payment system. Again, you can't do trade without a very good payment system because we have very different currencies. So we also appreciate and say thank you to Afrexim Bank that has tried to set up some measure of our payment system and a platform to test run the whole idea when we get started tomorrow. It's a very big day. It's a journey of 1,000 miles. And tomorrow is the first day we're taking that first baby step. And I put it out on our Twitter account that, look, this is going to be like when the first man landed on the moon and the whole world was waiting and it took the first step out of the vessel and place it on the moon. So it is like a baby step when you look at a video all over again, like a little baby trying to get started. But today, landing on the moon has become like no longer rocket science. I'm sure you know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
So Africa is going to take this first step. Yes.
Thank you, Boston. You're right. It's a journey of 1,000 miles starts tomorrow for the African continent, and it's taking shape at a time when we've seen nationalist politics, we've seen protectionism take shape in countries in Europe and North America. And so when everybody is really focusing on national politics, the continent is saying, look, for the first time, we're going to work together. And you're absolutely right. There is a lot of work that is required to be able to fully implement this new trade agreement. One of the areas that the continent needs to work on, and there's been great investment in infrastructure, is ensuring that we have that infrastructure to be able to allow goods to move from one border to border. Another area is just really ensuring that we eliminate barriers to trade, and one of those is non-tariff barriers. The challenges that our traders face at border points, and you highlight the importance of regional institutions, for example, the Africa Development Bank, the Afrexim Bank, that have really supported the African Union, supporting them with the capacity, ensuring that we have an online monitoring system, that countries can monitor how the trade is happening. We have a payment system. One of the issues again is currency volatility across the continent. We have a payment system in that we can trade with our own currency. So yes, our journey for the continent, I think scholars have written about a forced start for the continent. I think for us, actually, those of us who are committed to regional integration, those of us who know the importance of a collective continent. Tomorrow, though, there are challenges ahead. I think tomorrow marks that vision of integrated continent. And thank you, Boston, for keeping us informed.
Yes.
We started with the markets in North Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa. And we've seen, perhaps a summary for me, we've seen the resilience of Northern African market, the resilience of businesses in that part of the world. We've also seen countries, when we started with Gloomy News on South African region, towards the end of year, we started recording some positive moves in the market. You're seeing private sector moving aggressively to find opportunities. And of course, the star child of this program has been the East Africa. I think you've always focused on what's good is happening in East Africa, what innovation is taking shape in East African market. But I think what it has done for me is every day when I start the day with Frontier opening bell, understanding what the North, the East, and the South is doing. And I think it's been very instrumental for businesses to see what can we do to emulate what the North is doing. And thank you for keeping us informed with these headlines. And I really do hope this ambitious vision, Frontier Africa report is as ambitious as the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, a Pan-African platform. And I think this is going forward. I think this is, and we started with new terms. Are you muted? Can you hear me? Terms that have become so relevant in the era of COVID. But we've found a way of navigating the crisis and finding a platform to constantly inform people. And as we go forward, I am really looking forward to see how the markets open tomorrow and which markets will be setting an example for the rest of the continent.
We will do a whole lot more, and thank you very much. We thank you, and we thank everyone who's made 2020 possible as a cutting razor for us when it comes to what we're trying to do in democratizing financial market news across Africa, going where others are not going, bringing companies, analysts, and other information that international news channels are not looking at, bringing them to the fore, informing people. I know it's a whole lot because, again, when you look at African markets and economies, some are very small and like standalone across the various borders. The markets are small, very illiquid, small in size, so they often get overlooked by other international news media, even African traditional media platforms. So we really understand why it's like that. Sometimes to get data on a daily basis, it's like using your bare knuckles to go through stones to dig it out because we don't get data on time. Some of the exchanges, because they're small, technology they're using for trading and for transmitting data are not so up to speed like you have in the Western world. So it takes a whole lot of patience. And that's what I have learned personally in this year, that it takes a whole lot of patience. It takes a whole lot of tenacity, of purpose and interest to be precise. The interest you have is what has brought us this far. But what do we find? That there are gold and there are opportunities across the African continent, the companies that are doing well within their various jurisdiction, but there's not to their next door neighbor, but country by country. So what we're doing is to open up the whole space. It's an open skies Africa, in a manner of speaking, in which you can go across borders and you're just on one continent, one market like you have in Europe. And we're getting there little by little. But it's been an interesting year. Thank you very much. For the AFCFTA and for other things, we'll expand our programming in the new year. We will do one or two other key programming that will focus on some of the areas that we're yet to cover. So as we move along, the AFCFTA will take a whole lot of our daily programming moving forward in terms of the information we're providing to our viewers and users around the world, because even within Africa, we need to know a whole lot more about the AFCFTA. Then the wider world also need to know what we're doing. So the media, and finally for me, the media is at the center of this particular AFCFTA. The role of the media is as important as what AFDB, Afreximbank, the African Union, NEPAD, ECA, Economic Commission for Council, Commission for Africa, and others are doing. So the media is the vessel that will put all of this out. And we thank you for your support and everyone. Thank you so much, Agnes. Enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, we'll be back together on Monday to look into the new year. Thank you so much. Yes.
Person, before you stop, can perhaps maybe look at the themes that are taking us in 2021? So I wanted us to briefly touch on
Okay.
the key themes for the continent going
Okay.
into 2021. So I wanted to share that we started 2020 with a lot of optimism, particularly from the Eastern African
Yes.
region. The economies were expected to grow by at least over 5%. The other part, West and Southern Africa, was expected to grow at lower rates compared to the Eastern African region. We saw this change come March. The prospect completely dived, and as the year comes to an end, the economic outlook for the continent is bleak, with East African leading to grow at 1.2%, the rest of the continent contracting. But we are hopeful that with ACFTA, that this hopefully will change, and we'll see some form of recovery towards the first quarter of 2021. But the key themes going forward for the continent, I suppose, is building local supply chains, building local resilience, building our productive capability, focusing on financing the key drivers of our economies, and SMEs at this part of this, financing entrepreneurs, supporting tech entrepreneurs. As we've seen throughout the year, we've seen some investment go into the tech companies. So I think this mode will continue into 2021. But key theme is financing for the continent. What are the alternatives? What are the innovative ways of financing? It's a conversation we've had throughout the year. What we realized that Western economies, where Africa has constantly depended on for financing, have priorities, and priorities are rebuilding their economy. So therefore, the continent has to be innovative in finding other financing solutions. And one of the areas we've spoken about on this platform has been the role of diaspora remittance, and how we can tap that to channel, to support Africa financing. And I think that's another conversation we're going to go into towards 2021. So source of financing will be critical. The financing deficit in the African continent, when we look at healthcare infrastructure, it goes into billion. And just due to COVID, I think the continent is going to lose at least $189 billion in loss of economic activity. So key themes: financing, particularly access to finance for SMEs, trade integration. How do we facilitate? How do we make ACFTA actually operational? What do we need to build at national level and at continental level to make this trade agreement beneficial for everybody? Areas of tariff reduction, rules of origin, harmonizing, dispute resolution when it comes to trade. So there's a lot of activities going into 2021, and I think it's going to be a very busy year for everybody. And I'm hoping I will constantly tune into Frontier Africa reports to get an update. But it looks it's going to be a busy year for the continent. We are the only ones that are opening up with a little bit of optimism, because of the trade agreement, but also the fact that our economies are prospected to do better than the Western economy. But you can imagine the damage that has been induced by COVID-19, loss of economic activity, meaning governments have no way of revenue, generating revenue. So we have to tighten our belt as we go into 2021. But as you said, we start on a new level. We start the year optimistic, saying, look, 2021 was tough. 2021 is here. We have to do what it takes, and I guess we will keep the conversation going forward.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Thank you so much for summing it up very nicely. Agnes Jetta, Managing Partner at GBS Africa, Head of International Relations at Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and see you in the next.